So, good evening, one and all. I welcome you once again to the session on pursuing higher education in foreign, especially studying in Japan. So, I again, once again, thank Change Rural India NGO, especially these webinars organizers for their valuable time to gather all the speakers and then to gather all the audiences to share the knowledge to our juniors. So before starting the session, let me just give a slight introduction about myself. Uh, my name is Pachuri Pradeep Kumar. I'm from Andhra Pradesh. I'm from India, Andhra Pradesh, and then like I pursued my bachelor's in metallurgical and materials engineering from RGKT Nujividu in the batch of 2008 to 2014. I secured a all India rank of 479 in GATE, and then I joined in IIT Hyderabad for masters in material science and metallurgical engineering. During my bachelor's, I have done an internship at NIT Rourkela on the topic of polymer electrolytes. For that, I have presented that work at several conferences, and then I have won first paper presentation, technical paper presentation awards, especially at IIT Kharagpur and then MGIT Hyderabad. Uh, and during my masters at IIT Hyderabad during 2014 to 2016, I secured an academic excellence award, and then I worked on laser welding of nickel titanium dissimilar metal welding during my masters. While I was in my masters, I could get a chance to visit Japan for 1 week internship, or a kind of a visit to Japanese technologies and then their culture, etc., etc. And then like during that time, I had an interest. I gained interest on studying in Japan. So during so when I since I was an since I am an alumni of IIT Hyderabad. During my masters, I could get a scholarship from JICA, so which is a JICA friendship program. So it is especially for IIT Hyderabad students to secure to pursue their higher education in Japan. So I awarded that scholarship, and then I got admission at Osaka University, Japan, to pursue my doctoral studies. And then during my doctoral studies, I did dissimilar metal welding of copper, niobium, copper tantalum, copper molybdenum, and copper tungsten. And I finished my doctoral studies last year in the month of September. I graduated during my doctoral studies. I got placed in Suzuki Motor Corporation in R&D department, and now I'm working on developing new manufacturing processes and new manufacturing process and new materials designed for automobiles. So during my doctoral studies, I got a first a best technical paper presentation awards in a Japanese conferences. This is very special for me. Why is it so special for me? Probably I would like to talk about it in the coming slides. So before talking about the education or the studying in Japan, like what in this presentation I would like to talk about how to apply for Japanese universities and how to approach some professors and what are the options that are available, and if at all you choose to study in Japan, what are the challenges or the barriers that you will be having to face during your education in Japan. And then like I would like to talk about the benefits of pursuing higher education in Japan, and then like what are the job opportunities and what are the procedures of job opportunities for you in Japan. I would like to talk about them in a brief manner, and at the end yeah, that's how I would like to contribute. And at the end, probably if you have some questions, feel free to ask. So before going into the detailed discussion about today's topic, let me just talk about Japan. I mean, like when you heard about Japan, probably people might be hearing about the earthquakes, or else like the creative and innovative technologies that were developed by Japan. Yeah, yes, Japan is famous for that. And Japan is an Eastern Asian country, which is a small island and beautiful. and yeah, which is famous for its creative technologies. So Japanese technology, which is the Shinkansen, one of the fastest train, one of the fastest and then safest bullet train. And then like yeah, Japanese anime, I think probably we were brought up in some of we were brought up by watching some of these animes, like the Doraemon and then the Nobita, Shizuka-chan. Like these are all famous characters probably you might have heard, and the Japan is the origin of such anime. And Japan has 4 seasons. One is 4 seasons: summer, autumn, spring, and winter. You could see Japan. I mean, during each season, Japan has such a scenic beauty. You can actually enjoy what in each season with the various scenic beauties provided by the small country Japan. In the size wise, if you see, Japan is probably almost equal to the size of our state Andhra Pradesh, but still yet it is the third most strongest economy in the world, and people surprise the way they have come to that point. And Japanese are well known for their discipline and well known for their manners. Probably you might have seen in movies also. And yeah, of course, people have, when when they hear about Japan, people think that the natural calamities are very quite common in Japan. Yes, it is true. However, like they have made themselves stronger to such natural calamities, and they have designed innovative technologies to sustain during even such natural calamities. Like I think every day, literally, Japan is hit by a small earthquake. Yet, very less. I think per year, very less number of people are dying, and it is not at all that much affecting the Japanese economy or their architect, their buildings, anything. And Japan is well known for their food culture, because the Japanese people have the highest average lifespan. They live at least 80 years or 90 years just because of the healthy food habits they have. This is all about Japan in a nutshell. Although if I keep talking about Japan, the things that you admire here, it takes a lot of time. And one more thing, Japan's longest cities, I mean the largest cities like Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto are named as the safest cities. The top 10, they are in the list of top 10 safest cities in the world. So in coming to Japan's top universities, like University of Tokyo, Kyoto University, Osaka University, so they have the world QS rankings like 23, 35, and 67. Like they are in top 200 university in the world, topmost 200 universities. And I believe they are far better than the ranking they were given, just because the world ranking consider how many foreign people are studying, and then how many, I mean the what is the basic, like are they being taught in English or in like all these factors considers. And that's the reason why I believe the ranking was a little less, but I believe they are much better than some of the top universities in terms of research they are carrying out. Not just these universities, Japan has almost 47 prefectures, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, 47 prefectures according to this map. So 47 prefectures, and each prefecture has its own university, such as for example, if you take the Shizuoka prefecture where I am living now. So the 22 in the map 22. So the Shizuoka prefecture has Shizuoka University, and then Kumamoto prefecture has its own Kumamoto University, and all of them are having foreign people who are studying, pursuing their higher education there, and then they are equal to the world's. I mean, they are having the education levels almost equal to on a few of the world's best universities. So before and yeah, what is the education system? I mean, like probably this is what I know. Probably I may be wrong, but yeah, from the information that I know, usually in Japan, all there are two. You can take admission twice. in a year. One is in spring, that is in April, and then autumn, that is in October. And they have also 2 semester system, and then grading system is mostly CGPA. And yeah, there is slightly one thing that you have to be cautious when you're choosing an university. Like most of the I mean, some of the universities, they offer the courses in Japanese. However, in those universities also support for international students is possible, so you don't need to worry about it. But yeah, there is this thing, like, I just put a not so important thing, like, when you compare the Japanese education and Indian education. Japanese education system has an elementary school for 6 years, and junior high school for 3 years, and high school for 3 years, and then later they will apply, they'll write what is national wide exam and to get admission in universities like, IIT and JEE. So we have this, after SSC we have this college system where they do not have that system. Just that. And usually many people after their high school graduation, they go for jobs. So they usually, their high school education is that level, I mean that high level. So if you want to get admission in Japanese universities, like, I mean, what should you do? What are the methods? What are the steps that you have to follow, and what are the options that are available? Let me talk about it in this slide. First and foremost, try finding or applying a suitable scholarship. Actually, Japan is one of the expensive nation in the world. So if you want to study with your own money, it is quite difficult. Yet there are some people who are still managing themselves, by working part-time jobs, or else, with the help of their parents, they're paying the tuition fee. But yeah, I mean, if you really are very much interested to study in Japan, then you can do. But yeah, there are several, scholarship opportunities for you on which you can search on the internet. For example, let me talk about this MEXT scholarship, which is given, I mean, which is a world, I mean, almost all people can apply to this scholarship. MEXT scholars, like, I mean, I think you can find a lot of MEXT scholars in Japan. And this MEXT scholarship has, 2 kinds of ways where you can actually go to their website, and then you can apply to the scholarship, and then probably the embassy, in the Indian embassy, you will be having an interview, and then accordingly they will award you the scholarship. And there is one more way you can apply for this scholarship is like, you start finding the professors that you would like to work, and then the university that you would like to study, and then you try to contact that professor that, you're really willing to work with him, and if you get an opportunity, it would be grateful for you. So start applying to that professor. And then there is, in the MEX scholarship, there is one more option where the university recommendation. If the Japanese university, if that professor likes your profile, then he actually recommend you to that scholarship. So which is little simple, not that difficult compared with the embassy recommendation. So probably you can actually choose that way also. And there is another scholarship, that is JICA scholarship, although this JICA scholarship is limited to few IITs, I think. And not just these 2 scholarships, there are, like, if you go to if you since I have mentioned, there are like 47 prefectures in Japan, probably. Yeah, and according to that map. So each prefecture have some certain scholarships program. So probably you can actually search them on the internet, and you will be getting about the information about such scholarships. Like, for example, Nagoya Aichi prefecture, it has its own prefectural scholarship. So probably you can go through about that scholarships. And then other thing is university funding. So many of the Japanese universities are quite rich, and then they have lots of collaborations with industries, which is the thing that I think, lacking in Indian universities, where Japanese universities are actually mostly, some of the departments are funded by the industries. They closely work with industries, so that they can actually get funds to support the research as well as the students. So probably you can, if the professor likes you and if he has funding, probably he may offer you the university funding also. So before applying, probably you can actually do prepare yourself by giving an English proficiency test, possible TOEFL or IELTS. If you have that score, that would be that makes the professor believe that okay, you're capable in writing papers in English, and then communication. So basic communication, at least you're capable to do. So that would be good. And yeah, so if you have scholarships, then probably to get an acceptance from professors, some departments or some professors, they don't need any English proficiency test, at least for Indians, because we'll be doing our higher education at least from university or college education in English. So they believe in our universities or college education. uh, and not just the prefectural scholarships. Usually, mostly, many universities have their scholarships, such as Nagoya University or Shizuoka University have the programs like DII or ABP, Asian Bridge program. So each university have its own scholarship, so probably you can find them on their websites, and then you can choose any of them according to their features, and then start applying to professor. So how do you apply a professor? Like, I mean, what are the tips, or else what are the things that you have to be considered when you are applying a professor? First and foremost is like, just look what do you want to work on, and then find relevant research papers on the internet, and then gain some knowledge about I mean, what kind of research is going on, and what are the future opportunities if at all you choose to work on that research topic. If you read several research papers, then you get knowledge. Not just that, and then according to that research field, actually search for the professor in Japan who is working on that research area. And probably if he's working on that research area, you can find some papers, his recent papers, and read those recent papers. From those recent papers, try to frame, I mean, what exactly they are doing, and according to your research interest, how can you contribute to that laboratory, and or else how can you work in that laboratory, how can you make your profile interested, I mean, how can you make your profile so exciting for the professor to see. So if you write all these things in the email, that for example, if a professor is working on let me see, like welding. If a professor is working, just find what kind of welding techniques is he working on, and then try to read those papers. From those papers, get an idea what exactly is he working, and then try to write that in the mail, like, professor, I have seen your recent paper, quote that paper, and this is very interesting, especially the technique that you have used was so exciting and then innovative. It would be very grateful for me to get an opportunity to work in your laboratory to build my career. So in that way, if you write, then actually it shows that you have interest to work with him. At the same time, you are honest with your efforts, which creates a positive impact or positive idea about you, that makes him to read all your mail and then reply you. See, if you just write him that I am interested to work with you because I want to work on welding, so it would be grateful for me to get an opportunity to work in your lab. If you write in such a short way, then he can ignore you, because there are several people who are writing in that way. Instead, put some efforts and put some time, and then show that you are really interested to work with them. Then obviously, in 5 professors, at least 2 will respond to you. But if you write a very general way that you want to work with him, then definitely I think the mostly all the 5 will ignore you. So this is how you have to write, and then you have to show that you are really interested to work with him. And it would be great if you have some research publications in that field, which gives a belief on you, that that professor can believe you, okay, this guy can do research, and then he would actually take you. So the next thing, I think, if I'm not wrong, I have clarified, like, how can you approach a professor, what are the ways, and what are the scholarships, and what are the options, and how do you prepare yourself for such things in admission. So let me continue with today's topic. That is, what are the challenges, if at all you come to Japan, that you will be you will be faced. The first and foremost is language barrier. Probably I should emphasize on this, like, in India, like, depending upon the state, we have our own mother tongue. And I think until 10th class or until SSC, usually many government schools give the education in in their mother tongue. In Japan, like, until higher education, even PhD, you can do your education, you can pursue your education in Japanese. Everything, almost all, are there in Japanese. Even the research papers they try to write in Japanese. Even in industries, the medium of communication is Japanese, except few companies that I will talk in the coming slide. Yeah, the language barrier is the first and foremost will be facing by any foreigner, because you mostly you rarely find some English boards, or English communication, or English speaking professor. But yeah, the technical conversations or technical writing, any professor in any university, they are comfortable. But still, this language barrier, they try to come, they want you to speak in Japanese if possible. That makes the communication, or that makes the atmosphere more friendly and lively at the same time, which makes your career, which open up a lot of doors for to construct or to build your career in Japan. So this is the language thing. Like, I believe they have everything in Japanese, and that's the reason why I believe, they are very strong in basics. And they are, they could develop everything to that. The ideas, or the creative ideas, or the technology is that high. And that's why I think, it is the third largest economy in the world. I think, this language has contributed a lot to it. Next thing is the culture shock. Let me talk about, very few examples, what kind of culture shocks that you will be, like, these are very, very cute, probably I would say, and very relaxing. Let me talk about these public baths. Since Japan has 3 months of cold, depending upon the prefecture, you will be having higher temperatures and minus degree temperatures also. They have these public baths. They call them onsens in Japan, where, like, people just go there and then relax themselves by sitting naked in the bath. Yet, like, boys and girls, they have separate, so you don't get your thoughts there. Yeah, so it is so relaxing, especially in winter. You work hard in the cold temperature from the morning till the evening, and obviously would want to relax yourself by sitting in a hot water tub, which they do in every household. Every house had their own small onsen version, where they just sit and then take bath. But, like, they also have the public baths, where, like, sauna technique, or else very high pressure water will be coming in all the directions, which makes your body loosen up, and then you will be feeling relaxing. Which is little weird for Indians, not just Indians, I think most of the foreign countries, to be naked in front of someone. This is their culture, so they do not force you to get into the public baths. I'm just telling you, such kind of things are there. And another is, like, they rarely use English. So you can see, like, the pillows, they wrote pillows. Not everywhere is there, but it is so cute that, they do not have the sound in Japanese L. They do not have the sound of L, so they just have R. So that's why, like, they just write, when piros, in, like, they just missed out the L over there. Is it wrong? La. Or maybe I might be opposite. They do not have one sound, R or L, and that's the reason why, like, they have confusion. uh, yeah, L, they do not have L, I'm sorry, they just have R, they do not have L. Sorry. Japanese cities are very much crowded, yet they are very much disciplined. They have very strong and like, they have very strict rules. And although you see a lot of people on the street, yet you feel yourself comfortable to walk on the streets, to cross the signals, because everyone follows rules. And one more thing, usually, many of the Indians, even me, when I came to Japan, you feel yourself like, am I too fat? Because they're very thin, most of them. They're very thin because of the life habits they have and the food habits they have. So that's why you may feel, I mean, these kind of small and cute culture shocks you will be experiencing. These are, like, they are little funny for us, but yeah, you can adjust yourself for that. And the third thing is communication. The way we communicate is quite different with the Japanese. They communicate usually, like when you want to explain a topic, we usually choose our mouth, like, we try to explain everything by our words. But usually Japanese, they use simple illustrations to make to make everything, to communicate with others. Like, they make simple illustrations, or they have certain ways to communicate, to explain something to others. And then they have this hierarchy where, like, they strictly follow the seniors and juniors relationship. Although the senior, I mean, you have to give respect to seniors. Like, in Telugu we have peddaలను గౌరవించాలి. So they have that hierarchy system in Japan, not just in Japan. Like, I'm not just in universities, in industries also they have, the seniors and juniors relationship. Even the seniors, they treat juniors as their brothers or their children, and then they explain everything so nicely. And at the same time, the juniors also respect the seniors. And yeah, the thing is, the natural calamities, people, when you come to Japan, when you are in India, we rarely experience the floodings, or else, the earthquakes or tsunamis. But in Japan, the earthquake things are quite common. It will be very, I mean, when you actually come here, you feel little afraid. But when the technology that they have, that when you see them, you really feel, very safe inside your heart. You believe them. So these are the few challenges that you will have to face when you think, or when you try to study in Japan. And what are the barriers? Like, I mean, these are the good things, yet they are new to us. That's why I feel little, they are barriers. Yeah, especially the food habits. Like, let me tell you one thing. Like, when I was in Osaka University, we usually eat in the university cafeteria. In the cafeteria, actually, when you take the food, they actually write how many calories did you take with that meal, and how many vegetables did you eat, and how a healthy man or a healthy woman should take, what is the diet that they should take, and then what is the diet that you are taking. So you can actually see all these details in the receipt that they provide you in the university cafeteria. So that's how you, I mean, that's strict, or else that well organized they are. So in that way, you can actually see, am I eating too much, or else are these calories sufficient for me, or else should I take more proteins, or should I take more carbohydrates? In that way, you can actually check. So when you come to Japan, you will be shocked the way, I mean, the amount that they eat, they are very small, yet that is just sufficient. But in India, we don't do that, so you feel, oh, surprising. And next thing is punctuality. They are very strict about punctuality. Let me tell you one thing, like, when they give presentations, they at least tell you have to finish a presentation in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. They actually put the timer, and then at 7 minutes they tell you, like, you just have 1 more minute so to finish the presentation, and then the final 2 minutes are for question and answer. So if they say the session starts at 9, then it exactly starts at 9. If they say it will be finishing at 5, then it exactly finishes at 5. Not just that, even the trains or the buses, everything are in time, which is little difficult for us to adjust, because in India, 5 minutes late is not a big deal. But here in Japan, for example, if you have to submit a document in 5 minutes, I mean by 10 a.m., they close the window in 10, exactly at 10 a.m. They really do not care how important is it, or how much struggle you faced. Even if you're 5 minutes late, you are late, and you have to wait for one more day. So they are very punctual, and which is really good for us to make ourselves very well disciplined. well disciplined. And the next thing is peaceful surroundings. Like they really don't want to disturb your neighbors, anyone's, like, I mean, everyone want to have their time peacefully, because they work hard, and then like they want to take rest on Saturdays and Sundays. And if your neighbor puts some loudspeaker, and if your neighbor speaking too loud, then obviously they complain to, some police station, and then like they will come and then warn you. So at first you feel little difficult, but when you start adjusting yourself, you start really liking it, because you also want to take rest. And then I really feel like, such systems, such rules are really, really nice. And then Japanese are very, very kind hearted. They really, what is this, criticize you on the they rarely criticize you on the face. So which is little difficult for you to understand, because some people are they speak on the face, but most of the Japanese, they don't speak rudely on your face. And then a clean atmosphere. So when you want to throw some dust out, you find, you cannot throw everywhere you want, anywhere you want, because they have certain rules, like, you have to put plastic in separate box, and then burnable, unburnable, and PET bottles, etc., etc. So they have very clean atmosphere, and the air is very clean. So these are the few things that you'll be, shocked when you come to Japan, but I'll believe me that you will really like them. So those were the challenges, and then the barriers that you'll be seeing after coming to Japan. But what are the benefits of pursuing higher education, higher studies in Japan? So the first and foremost benefit that you'll be getting is research oriented career. Usually in India, like in IIT Hyderabad, we used to choose our professors in the second semesters of masters, and then we start working, do literature review, and then like start the real project in the second year of masters. But in Japan, if you are a master student or if you are a bachelor students, every professor has his own laboratory. So you'll be joined in that laboratory, and you will attend classes while you are a part of that laboratory. And while you are taking the classes, you will have to do your research also, which is very, very good, I believe, because you'll be having a lot of time to do research and get an exposure how to think, or how to approach a problem, how to analyze the results. So I think the research oriented career is one of the biggest benefit that anyone can get in Japan. And one more thing, the next is industrial exposure. As I already mentioned you, that many laboratories, they work, or many professors or universities, they work with industries very closely. So you'll be you mostly, maybe you will be working on the industrial project, I mean. See, the industry people, they cannot work too detailed, they do not know the I mean, very detailed things. So if they do not know something, they approach the professor, and the professor helps them in solving that problem. So probably you'll get an opportunity to work on that project, which actually helps you to get the contacts of the industrial people, and then how should you think in a way an industry think. It actually helps you to actually inculcates all the thoughts, or make yourself prepare for yourself for an industrial career. And next thing is state of art laboratory facilities. Like, the laboratories, they have very luxurious facilities, especially like since they have very good funding from the university, from the industries. At the same time, they have good funding from the government, so they have their own SEM. If I have to speak in a material scientist way, like probably, yeah, universal tensile test machine. In India, like each department used to have 2 or 3, but in Japan, like each laboratory have one such machine. So you can see how luxurious such, I mean, how greatly a laboratory is established, and how much time you get to put your efforts in research. And then the international exposures that you will be having, the international exposure that, if you consider me, when I was in Japan, like I attended 2 international conferences, and every year I attended 4 conferences inside Japan. So that way you can actually get a lot of international exposure for your career, and then you can actually build a lot of contacts, international contacts. And if you pursue a higher education in Japan, actually they will teach you how to approach any problem in a systematic way, which I believe, which I have learned after coming to Japan very keenly, because I get an opportunity to work with my professor so closely, and I can talk to him. And that's where, like, he actually teach me how to approach a problem and to solve that problem in a limited time. And probably I believe that's the reason why I could finish my doctoral course in a 3 year span. So these were the benefits that you'll be getting if you start pursuing your higher studies in Japan. So what are the job opportunities that you will be having if you come to Japan? So this is a graph which shows, the age 0 to 14. I mean, the younger generation, as the time is passing, Japanese older generation are in more number than the younger generation, which is quite opposite to India. However, the number of industries, if you see in Japan, like they have the most world's, the automobile industry, like probably they say like mother or father of the automobile industry is Japan. Like the one the automobile industry, like Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Mitsubishi, Suzuki, all these automobile industries were started or established in Japan, and now they are the world's topmost automobile industries. So in such a small country, you can see how greatly they have established, I mean, how many industries they have. Like probably these are the names probably you might be heard. That's the reason why I put not just these industries. There are several other industries also, like Panasonic, Denso, Hitachi, Shimazu, Nippon Steels, Sony, like, I mean, Bridgestone. All these industries are like they are of Japanese industries. So you as the younger generation are less, they have lots of industrial opportunities, job opportunities for you to build your career in Japan. So let me talk about the job hunting process in Japan. Usually, like, there are 3 ways that you try to apply for a job. One is the university recommendation, which is similar to placements, where, like, each industry or each company, they have, since as I already told you, they have close collaborations with the university. So each university, they provide like each industry, they ask university to recommend few students to the industry. So if a university recommends you to the company that this guy, according to probably the CGPA, so they actually ask depending upon the preference. So if you for example, 10 companies asked university to recommend some students, so obviously they ask all the students in the university to give their preferences. So according to your preference and then CGPA, they recommend you to that company. So if you apply through university recommendation, probably your chances of getting into the company are very high, because it is very difficult to reject that university recommendation. If a university is recommending you, that means they believe that this guy is capable to go to that company. So this is the university recommendation way. So mostly almost all the students and most of the big universities, not just big universities, I think almost all the universities have that university recommendation system. And next thing is apply through the company portal. Like anyway, in the job hunting season in Japan starts in April. So in the April, they actually opens their portal to everyone, and then you can actually apply there. You can fill the details, why do you want to join the company, and according to that they call you for a written test and then the interview. Other than these two, there is one more thing is self application. If you are interested to work in certain company in a certain department, you can actually write an email to that certain HR by attaching your resume and stating that you want to work with that company. possibly they can actually look into your career, they can actually look into your resume, and according to that resume, if they find okay you're fit to that company, then they will definitely contact you. So these are the three ways that you can actually apply to a Japanese company. So what are the things that you should have if you want to apply to a Japanese company? First and foremost is like, have Japanese language skill. As I mentioned you, that Japanese language is very much important if you want to communicate or if you want to make yourself comfortable in Japan. Learning Japanese is very like, the best way that you can actually have a very good career. So like, and then you should show high level of motivation towards Japanese companies. As I already mentioned you, that when you're writing to a professor, you should show that you are interested to work with him. At the same time, if you want to work with a Japanese company, you actually have to show that you are really interested to work with that company, and you studied about their profile, and then how can you help them, how can you help that industry, help that company to grow, how can you be an effective employee in that company. So you have to write all these things. And then you should be flexible, as Japanese companies expect you to stay with them for a very long time. Actually, in India, like people actually know, I think probably let's just put the IT industry aside, because IT industry is common everywhere. They just want to jump the companies. I mean, since they want to grow in their career. But the core industries such as manufacturing or automobile industries, they actually put lot of efforts to train you according in a way they think, because we were students, so our thoughts were completely different. But when you join a company, the way you have to think, the way you have to focus are completely different. So they put and they spend a lot of time and money on you to train according to the way they want you to think, or to the way you have to work in a company. So they expect you to stay with them for a long time. Usually, the Japanese people, they actually stay in a company till they retire. You can you imagine, like, I mean, if a person joins a company, he actually thinks that it is his second home, and he actually thinks that he has to contribute to that company a lot. And that's the reason why, like, the Japanese companies expect you to stay with them for a long time. So in that way, if you think, you have to be very flexible. For example, my research topic was, welding. So if I say that I only want to work on welding, and so what if someone develop a technology to join metal without welding? And so there is no necessity of a welding engineer for an automobile engineer. So do I say that I still want to work on welding? No, you cannot say. So you have to make yourself flexible to work on different topics. Even if it is new to you, spend some time to learn the topic. They actually if it is new to you, they actually teach everything to you from the scratch. Like, they teach to a university student. So they teach everything to you. From there you build your knowledge, and then you contribute to the company. So that's how the Japanese industries work. So you have to be flexible in that way. So just make sure, like, you put this, that you are flexible, that you would like to work on several things. Probably you are a foreigner, so you have the advantage of speaking English. So if you can speak English and Japanese, then that would be the greatest benefit that you'll be having. So probably you can tell them that, I can help you in expanding your overseas business. Although you are from technical department, but you can put your efforts, you can help the company to grow in that in that way also. In that way you make yourself an attractive product, and then you sell yourself to the company. uh, and the next thing is, guarantor is an important thing that Japanese companies consider. Actually, when you apply to the Japanese companies, they cannot believe anyone, and they cannot believe everyone. They cannot believe every degree that you provide. They should know. For example, if someone is coming from India, as I already mentioned yesterday, that if someone is from IIT, since they know the brand IIT, so they believe, okay, this guy has certain skills, and this guy is good in thinking. So probably we can believe, and then take him and make him join in the company. So the brand thing is very important for a Japanese companies to believe you. sometimes people actually contact me like, I have 3 to 5 years of experience in India, so can I apply in Japanese companies? So for such people, I request and I recommend them, first and foremost thing is you learn Japanese. In India also, you can actually learn Japanese if possible, and try to give the JLPT, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test. If you have the JLPT, language proficiency test result, if you actually attach it with your resume and then forward it to the Japanese companies, then they can actually look into it, and then they can actually think of taking you. If not, the best way is, if you have that experience, then I recommend you to come to study or pursue your higher education in Japan, like masters or doctoral course in Japanese universities, and that's how you can actually enter into Japanese companies so easily. I mean, this is one of the way, or else you learn Japanese. So this is my suggestion to all those people who actually have some experience, or who actually graduated from bachelor's and then who actually thinking to work for Japanese industries. So I actually request them to spend some time to learn the Japanese skills, have acquire some Japanese skills, and then start applying for Japanese companies. And that way you can actually get a job. And mostly, these days the Japanese companies, they are actually trying to establish their industrial career, or their future in Indian, because in India, because India is the one of the developing nations, and it has the largest market. So they actually look into your profile if you write to them an email. And since you are Indians, obviously you will be having that benefit. You can actually portray yourself that I can be a benefit for you to expand your overseas business, at least especially in India. And I have a JLPT, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test score. So where, like, I can communicate with you, at the same time I can help you to communicate with Indian market. So that's how you make yourself attractive to any Japanese industries. And that's the reason why, like, when I was in Japan, like, I realized that importance or the significance of learning Japanese. I put some time and efforts to learn Japanese language. Now I could communicate in Japanese. For example, whatever the presentation that I have done till now, probably I can give all that in Japanese, that I have acquired during my 3 years. And that's the reason why it was little easy for me to get into any to a Japanese industry. And since I'm from Osaka University, that is also one thing that they consider. And not just that, after getting into industries, you have to deal with lots of people, and lots of people. So if you are a senior, or if you are a manager, probably you have to communicate with lots of your juniors. So during that time, you don't expect everyone to speak English, so that is a kind of selfishness. So probably you put some efforts to learn Japanese, so that you can communicate with them also, and they also put some efforts to speak English in a way to communicate with you. Yeah. And of course, the Japanese is not mandatory with all the companies. There are some certain companies, probably the company that I know in Hitachi, the medium of communication is English there. If you can speak English, that is totally fine. And if you can speak Japanese, that is well and good. So I mean, it is fine for, I mean, anything is fine for them. But it would be good, or it is easy to join that Hitachi company if you have pursued your higher education in Japan. So according to your experience, for example, if you have 3 to 4 years of experience in India and you want to join in Japanese companies, you come to Japan, you pursue your higher education, and then you negotiate with the company. Like, you can tell them that you have 3 years or 4 years of experience. Then, like, they can think of giving you a high salary according to your experience. So this is one of the way that I recommend to those who are aspiring to join Japanese industries. Well, like, I think I have covered most of the things that you have to do when you prepare yourself to come to Japan, and then like, pursue your higher education, or when you want to construct your career in Japan. And yeah, one more thing, let me specify this. Like, many Japanese industries, they need IT employees. They need a quality IT employees since India is famous for that, if an IT graduate, if an computer science graduate try to contact in the Japanese IT industries, and if you have JLPT language, I mean JLPT score, then it is very easy for you to get into that companies because they are in need of IT professionals. Just make yourself attractive, and then it will be easy for you to get a job in Japan, if you have the requirements that they ask. So I think I'm fine. I think I finished the session today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And even if you are shy to ask, I think this video will be uploaded soon on the YouTube. So please write your question if you have any question, or if you think that you would like a clarification. Please write